All right, so we'll get started. Good morning, I'm Derek Waterman, work here at Engine, and today's webinar is over resell. I'll go a little bit over setup, but mainly I'm going to try to get into quotes, orders, and invoicing of resell. So I'll save the details of the setup till the end. That way, if you're an admin type person and you want to do it, you can watch that. And then if you're not an admin dealing with setup, you can drop out. Gives you that option. So we'll play that by ear at the end. So I need to share my screen. Okay, quick thumbs up if you can see my Oasis screen. Thank y'all. Okay, so resell. A couple of quick things that are important about resell that may bite you if you're starting to do resell and it's not seeming to work right. One is you have to have a manufacturer set up for resell, a customer set up for resell, and you have to have taxes set up, even if you're making everybody tax exempt. So if you ever do resell and it just doesn't seem to be working, those are three things to check. Manufacturers allowed for resell, customers allowed for resell, and taxes are set up. And we still got a lot of people pouring in, so that's good. All right. So for, again, like I said earlier, I'll go through the details of how to set up at the end. So that way, if you're not a person that does resell setup, you can drop out. But just in general, if you're just checking to make sure things are set up, if you go to the manufacturer settings in your database, you can search for the manufacturer by typing in the name to the right, or click my manufacturers to list them all. And I've got a few generic manufacturers entered into here. I have one that's set up for commission only, just to show you what this looks like. If neither of these resell boxes are checked under terms, I cannot do resell with that manufacturer in Oasis. It just won't allow it. So that's the first thing to check. If you are only doing resell with a manufacturer, you want resell okay checked and resell only checked. That means you can't do commissioned orders. You can still do commission on resell orders. You just can't do straight up commissioned order where the customers, sending the PO to the factory. It's coming through you. And then the third scenario is where a manufacturer can do both, and you're checking for resell okay and this unchecked. That allows them to do both commissioned and resell. The next is customers. So I have two customers in my database, and under the terms tab, I have resell okay checked. So if the manufacturer's checked resell okay and the customer's checked resell okay, and you filled out the tax situation, which I'll explain later, you can now do resell for that customer manufacturer combination. So I've already got a project set up here. It's got a blank bill of materials so I can show you things to look for. Just as a reminder, your columns that I have visible, you may not have the same columns I do. That's okay. The columns you can view are completely set by your preferences or the company's preferences if they want to have a standardized setup. And so how you do that is under File Preferences, and you check the columns you want. For the purposes of this training, I needed to make sure that cost and resell were checked so I can see them here. So my first manufacturer I had was a commissioned only one. So I'm going to select that. You'll see that if I enter any line that has a commission only manufacturer, I don't have the option to check resell. It is blocked. So I can click this all I want. It won't let me check resell, and it won't let me enter a cost. If I do a resell manufacturer, and this one's resell only, it automatically checks it because it is only allowed to do resell. So it is assuming that it has to be resell and a cost needs to be entered. And in that one combination where I had a manufacturer set for both, it doesn't automatically check resell, but it allows me to do so. So as you can see, I can check it, and when it's checked, I can enter cost. On a side note, if you enter any cost, it automatically will check that. So once you have a cost entered, it will assume you're in a resell scenario. So that's just a quick way to check for that, to make sure your settings are right. If you're not able to check resell, something's wrong when you're doing a resell quote. So I'm going to go back over here to initial phase because to save time, I kind of quickly built out a bill of material. I wanted to show a variety of options. So I have all three of those manufacturers I described, the one that can do both, the one that's resell only, and the one that's commissioned only. These dollar values obviously are just made up on my part. I don't know if they're realistic in your scenario. It's just for the purposes of this training. So you can see that for my two both manufacturers, I have resell checked and I have a cost entered. And then for the two resell only manufacturers, that was automatically checked and I had to enter a cost. For my commission, it's not checked and it won't let me check them, and it doesn't have a cost. I also wanted to show that on a resell line, on this both resell manufacturer, there is commission on that line, even though it's resell. So if you're doing a resell, keep in mind that you can do commission on a resell order. And Shelby just reminded me, thanks, Shelby. Put your questions in the chat if you have them, and if they're easy, quick answers, she'll answer them. Otherwise, we'll save them to the end and kind of go over, because we might take care of the answers along the way. All right, so when you have a resell quote, a quote that has resell on it, I should say, whether or not it's all resell or a mixture of resell and commission, when you create a PO from that quote, well, actually, before I do the PO, let me just show you real quick. I forgot to add a customer. So let me do it this way. Go to the customer section, add a customer. It will not show up on this screen if resell okay is checked if it's a resell quote. So I'm going to go ahead and add both the customers in our database, assuming that we're quoting both of them, just so we have them both there. And when I print a quote, it will look, let me do print preview, it will look basically the same as commission, and you can show the pricing, line level pricing, or not, just like you can on a commission order. So there's no, the customer doesn't necessarily know that you're reselling certain lines. Of course, this says resell, and that's just because I named that manufacturer resell. This would be the name of the actual manufacturer that's making it. So they don't really have a way of knowing which lines are resell and which lines might be commission. So when you get done with quoting and you've won the quote and you're ready to flip it to an order, that's the big difference between commission and resell. Otherwise, it's kind of the same on the quoting side. These two checkbox and then flipping to an order. So when you flip it to an order, you can use the this button right here, create PO. It'll ask if you want to save it. And I forgot a step. Yep. I got to assume that somebody won. So I'm going to say that my favorite customer won. So now When I flip it to an order on the staging screen, you get multiple options. The one that says commission only, keep in mind that I named my manufacturer commission only. This is the manufacturer name. So I could, if I had ABC manufacturer, DEF manufacturer, XYZ manufacturer, they would all be listed there for the commission lines, because those orders will be different than the resale orders. All the resale items are lumped into this all resale items. So to kind of demonstrate it, if I select commission only and go to the bill of material, it's only pulling in those two line items, part 3 and part 6, type C and F, that were the commission only manufacturer. So that's how you would create, which was done on another webinar, how you could create a commission order from the quote. And if you needed to adjust it, you can check as such. For today, we're going to do resale items, and it puts all those manufacturers into one radio box called all resale items. And when I go to the bill of material, you'll see the two lines from the manufacturer that's set to both resale and commission, and the two lines that's set to resale only. They're on there. If you need to separate them, that's still not a problem, because you can, for example, if I'm just going to do these two parts 2 and 5, I just would uncheck the others. So it's okay if you want to keep them separate by manufacturer. But for the purpose of this training, I'm going to keep them together just to show you that functionality. Reminder from other webinars or maybe training you've had, anything you enter on this order entry or address page will save you time if you're doing multiple orders. So if I go ahead and do the ship to, the alternate, the order entry, the markings, all this information, when I do the next order, it's staged and ready to go for the next order. I don't have to retype it. You don't have to do it here. You can still type all that information on the PO, but this just allows you to set it. Same with order notes. Any notes you put here will be available on subsequent orders coming from this quote, as well as shipping notes. So reminder, I've checked resale items. If these, if I do have the PO number from the customer, I could put that on there. If I do have to have a manufacturer quote, that can all be on there. If I need to change the freight, which I can't remember what I set the freight for these manufacturers, but if for some reason you need to force it to prepaid and add or allowed, you can do that. So for the PO number, I'm just going to put test resell for the PO number that we got from the customer. And I'm again going to use all the items. So when I click create, it's going to ask if you'd like to make the quote ordered or not. That is again a judgment call on your company. If you have not everything ordered, there's a threshold where you're going to want to call the quote ordered, and then there's a threshold where you want to leave it as quoted if there's enough bill of material that hasn't been ordered. For purpose of this training, I'm going to go ahead and call the quote ordered. The next question it asks whenever you create an order is if this is a release or a hold. It doesn't matter commissioned or resell, you can still do release or hold orders on either one. So you have that option either way. I'm going to do a release order. So what comes up next is the actual order. It's a resell. You can tell by the yellow background and the word resell here. It pulled in the PO number that I typed, all the address information it pulled from the customer settings, but on that staging screen, had I typed something in, it would have pulled it into there. Same for the marking information here. It pulled all the rest of the stuff from the quote, so just like your commissioned orders work. And then on the bill of material, it has all 4 parts from both manufacturers. It pre-populates cost and the sell, and of course the difference between the two is profit. just like on quotes, if you need to add or subtract columns, do file preferences. If you're not seeing, like, for example, cost, you should see cost on a resale order, but if for some reason it got turned off, this is how you can turn it back on. And so now I have the base customer PO for this resale order. What's different about this resale order is that it's going to help me keep track of both sides, the vendor side and the customer side. This says customer PO, but it's really a container that holds both the customer PO and the vendor POs. The vendor POs exist on this vendor orders tab. So whenever you see resale here, it's actually trying to hold both. And I'll show you kind of how that can get a little confusing in a moment. So I've got the customer side, we'll go to the vendor side. If you don't see the vendors listed here, you can click update and it pulls them in. So there's the commission and resale side. If I had, if I needed to enter the information, in this database, it's set to, I think it's set to start at 1,000. So I've entered 8 orders on this training database. So it's just incrementing this. So that would be based on your settings, and it pulls in the cost and sell just for that manufacturer. And same for resell only, the cost and sell just for that manufacturer. And there you can see it just incremented it by 1. Those are adjustable. You can change them, and you can adjust the automatic numbering process. Not a problem there. So if you have the customer order already, the customer sent you an order and you're wanting to make the order to the manufacturers to buy the product, because again, it's resale. You're buying the product and then reselling it to the customer. All you would have to do is hit the print button, and it will default to the manufacturer copy, and it'll check both those. You can uncheck them if needed. And just a reminder, this is the manufacturer name, not a type. It's a little confusing. I know, now that in hindsight, I look at it, but I just named this manufacturer commission and resell, and I named this manufacturer resell only. So that's where the manufacturer's name goes. You don't normally have to print a customer copy because they're sending it to you, but if for whatever reason you needed to print a PDF, maybe you got a record system where you want to put a copy in there, you can check that. But again, most of the time you'll just do the manufacturer copy for one or both or however many orders there are on there. And ideally you would be doing sending an order, which is the default setting, but you can do an office copy or an internal change. I'll leave it as sending. Oops, accidentally checked that. I'll leave it as sending order. And I will do PDF. And since I had them both checked, it's going to print both of them. Just going to give it a second here to open up my PDF preview. There we go. So based on the settings, the commission and resell, the commission and resell manufacturer has set up to just get the sales order, which is I'm ordering 10 part 1s and 22 part 4s, and it lists the the commission. Again, you can do commission on those, and it also shows what's total expected of the agency, just as if it was a commissioned order. But in this case, it is a resale. My company, this hypothetical company in this database, is buying this product and reselling it. The way I have the resell only set up is just to have a purchase order, which is like that. There's a setting to make it if this manufacturer prefers to have this format. But for the purpose of training, I'm just presenting both of them to you. So that's the hypothetical sending of the order to the manufacturer. If it took a second for it to refresh, but that's this is where you can tell if both of them are released, is the green release is here. And if both of them are released, it sets the overall release to released. If one of them wasn't, one of these would be yellow to highlight that you need to click it to see what's happened. So I have released both of these POs to the manufacturer to get the product going. It'll also show in attachments as a sub folder underneath. So both those are on there. And let's see, I lost my thought. Vendor PO. Oh, there. Yeah. So here's the vendor orders, but under the accounting tab, there's 2 copies of the orders that list the totals, but they're listed there as well. So I'm going to hit save and close and show you what I meant by the customer PO being the overarching container that holds the vendor PO. So if I go to the order section and click today, you will see, actually, let me just do this so you can, there's multiple orders in here. So these are the orders that are related to the resale training project. You'll see the customer PO here and the 2 vendor buy orders listed. The manufacturer lists the buy sell company as the manufacturer, which is something I'll go over for the training setup. That's just because of the default company buy sell ID was listed there. This would actually be your company's ID as a resale company listed there with a little asterisk to let you know it's resale. No matter which one of these I check or double click to open, I'm going to double click to open this 1008. It opens this container that has all 3. So no matter which one I open, it's there. So that's what I wanted to kind of highlight, that a resale order is a container of multiple documents that open up on one screen. So each resale manufacturer would have a vendor buy order. Actually, it doesn't even have, it could be, because I could do a vendor buy order multiple times to one manufacturer. So it's not just one per manufacturer, it's one or more per manufacturer, and then one overarching customer sell order. Any one of those I click will open the same item. Okay, so we've ordered these parts, and we hypothetically get a notification that they're shipping. You can handle shipping, like it could be that you're ordering the parts to come to you and they're getting repackaged and resent to the customer, or you're ordering them to be sent to the customer. Either way works. That you can handle the shipping either way. I'm going to say that the manufacturer is invoicing, let's say both manufacturer is invoicing us for those 2 parts and shipping them direct to the customer. So we get the little invoice there. Actually, before the invoice, you might get an acknowledgement. I forgot a step. So if you do get an acknowledgement, you can denote that on here. There's 2 ways to add shipping to an order. You can click under each line and click the add shipping, and it creates a shipping line for you. Or if there's a shipping toolbar, which is, give me a second, it's under the edit menu. Click edit shipping toolbar. So if this is not visible, just click edit shipping toolbar. And that creates a shipping toolbar up here that allows you to put shipping information once that applies to multiple lines. I'm going to demonstrate that, but just keep in mind that you could do it individually on each line. So we'll say that, let's see, it's the both. So I'll check both these. And we'll say that, yeah, I'll leave it as shipment 1 just for the purpose. Oh, because I entered 1, let me delete. It entered 1 line, so let me edit, remove selected. So that way we have just the 1 line that's created. So I got an order acknowledgement for the 10 part ones and 22 part fours. And that's what the ACK is. That step is a lot of times skipped, but you can show that on there. So the next step would be the actual shipping. So the two ways to do that is I can either enter the shipping and then maybe enter the invoice, or I can do them both at the same time. I'm going to show you how to do both at the same time. So I'm going to hit save and close. Let's see, we get the PO number is test resell. I'm going to go to the invoice section and I'm going to click file, new vendor invoice. And it was test resell. And I typed in the test resell and it's going to search my database for the POs that match that PO number. In this case, it found the one that's on there. So I'll go ahead and select it. Oh, yeah, my mistake. Yeah, that's what I did wrong. I entered the so mistake here. On the vendor PO, I entered the customer PO number. And so it was giving me a warning saying, wait a minute, you're doing a vendor invoice on a customer number. I forgot that the PO number was 1008, 1009 for the vendor side. So that was the mistake I made. So as soon as I hit 1008, it finds it. It asks, is this an invoice or a credit? Most of the time you do an invoice. And it pulls in those parts. And we'll say that the manufacturer sent me invoice number 123456. And it was dated today and it's due on September 18th. They can invoice separately, like let's say they're only invoicing you the 10 now or some sub number below 10. But in this scenario, I'm going to say they're invoicing all of them, all these parts. So a quick tip is hit F7 or tools invoice all. And what that does is it fills in the total amount being billed underneath each one to match the overall total. Side note here, this gray line is the order line. This yellow line is the invoice line, and it's automatically pulling in the shipping line below that for each of these. So there's on an invoice, there's three invoices and orders that can be up to 3 lines for every part line. And in this case, that's actually getting shipped. I'm going to say that it's getting shipped on the 21st out of, I don't think I entered any warehouses, so I'll just say warehouse. And it's going via FedEx with a tracking number, 3 days. And I want it to apply that to both those. So that way I can enter it once and copy it down to both these. If for some reason, again, if some reason I needed to adjust it, let's say I'm only getting billed for 15 and only 15 are getting shipped, that's no problem. That can all be taken care of, and you can do another shipping and invoice line for the rest of it. But I'm going to leave it as fully shipped. And there we go. You don't normally have to print this because the vendor already sent you the invoice. You're just entering the information. So I'm going to hit save and close. It's going to ask, since there is shipping, it's going to go, would you like to make this order shipped? I'm going to say yes, but again, it's a personal preference for your company on what threshold do you call an order shipped, if not all of it shipped yet. The next thing it asks, would you like to create the customer invoice? Are you wanting to, you've been billed by the manufacturer and the items are going to ship. Usually you probably want to go ahead and create the customer invoice to send to them. You don't have to do it now. You can hit no and do it at a later time. But if you hit yes, it's just going to go through the creation, do some data entry for you kind of automatically. Whenever you create an invoice, it always asks, is it an invoice or a credit? And so now I'm doing the customer side. And so these two lines are shipped. So I'm hypothetically only billing the customer for those two lines. If you knew that this is on its way and you wanted to go ahead and bill the customer for all of it, that's not a problem. You can go ahead and bill the customer for these lines as well. If you're wanting to have both resell orders in place before you bill the customer, in that case, you would have said no to bill the customer invoice, waited till you built the second the second vendor order for part 2 and 5. And then when you hit yes on customer invoice, it would have all been there. But in this scenario, we're saying that only part 1 and part 4 have been shipped. So those are the only ones I'm billing the customer at this time. When I hit print, it'll ask, would you like to change the order status to invoice? It just recently asked, would you like to change it to shipped? So it's only in shipped for a second if you're going to go ahead and make it invoice, but that's not a problem. And let me go to print preview. I'm not going to do duplicate or file copy. I just want you to see. So this is an invoice billing to your favorite customer. This is because I didn't fill out the buy sell company. This would be your company information right here. I did a poor job of setting up that bill too. And of course I left the ship to blank, so it doesn't show on there. But you can see the invoice. If you invoice it and you've already entered the shipping information, it's going to list that shipping information for you. So in addition to sending this customer shipping status information, it can also be included on the invoice automatically. And so this is just for these two parts. The reason why it has lot price is lot billing is checked. If you don't want lot billing, you could uncheck that to have line extended sales per line. So I'm going to go back to the order, and I just want to show you real quick. Test resell, go to the items tab. And so you'll see on the items tab, there is the the two parts that we ordered, the customer invoice line, the vendor invoice line, and the actual shipping line on there. And on the accounting tab, the customer invoices are there and the vendor invoices are now there. Just FYI, if you ever need to go straight, if you got a customer PO open and you need to go straight to the invoice, you can double click this or this to go straight to those invoices, or in the attachment tabs, you list them right here if you need to double click them. So I'll show you real quick. We're wanting to open up the customer invoice. So I double click that, it opens it. And if you're ever in an invoice and you want to go straight to the order, and we call it going down, that going from an invoice to an order or an order to a quote is kind of going up the chain. You want to do file, edit, in this case, edit order. If you're in an order, you can do file, edit quote, and it kind of walks you back up the chain. So that way you don't have to close it and go to the order section and type in the PO number and search for it. Just a quick way to bounce back and forth between the two. I'm going to now say that the rest of the items are getting shipped. So I'm going to go back to the vendor invoice section and do file, new vendor invoice. And I think it was 1009. Yep. So I just want to show you real quick what it looks like if you partially, if like say they're not going to ship all the items, so they're not billing for all the items. So I'm going to say 5 and I'll just say 3 of these. And I will put shipping information. I'm going to show this as actual shipping. So I'm going to put it in the past so it looks like actual. I was going to try to do something different. There we go. Check this one and this one. Apply. So 10 and 13 were ordered, 5 were billed, 5 were shipped, 3 were billed, 3 were shipped. These numbers don't have to match. If for some reason in your scenario they need to be different, that's fine. I'm just showing you real quick what it looks like. So I'm going to hit save. Oh, yeah, I forgot to put an invoice number. Save. Go back to the order so you can see there's the partial shipping. It has its yellow highlighted to kind of draw your eyes that not all of them have been shipped. So if I do file new vendor invoice from this order, oh, sorry. The reason why I can't do that is because I have multiple manufacturers on this. So you have to go to the invoice section and do file new vendor invoice, PO number 1009, invoice. And earlier I think I did 3 and 5 or 5 and 3. If I hit tools invoice all, it's going to do the math for you. It knew that 5 were done before and 3 were done before, so it's trying to just only ship the remaining items. Again, you can adjust those if needed. Let's see, it's a different invoice number. And then I'm just doing this real quick to show you what it looks like. Let's say no for right now. And so there's the 5, and there's the 5, there's the 3, there's the 10. So it kind of all, keeps track. So now I want to finish the customer invoice. My favorite customer. I think I called it resell training. I think I did. Let me go over here. Customer sell. Test resell. That's what I called it. If I could type. There we go. So now it finds it, invoice. I'm going to hit tools, invoice all, just as a quick way to, this is the last invoice I'm sending to the customer. So I just want it all to be invoiced, the remaining items to be invoiced. And it will if I hit print, I think it's going to automatically add that. Yeah, it automatically added it based on my settings. So it's now doing the other items to send the customer. Again, just to kind of reiterate, I could have done both. If I was wanting to wait to bill the end customer everything on one, that's not a problem. I would have done both their vendor POs, got them in the system, and then I could have done one customer invoice for all of them. And that's kind of a falsehood. And now that I say it, I could bill the customer before any resell invoices. I'm just assuming you're not going to bill the customer till the manufacturer bills you, but that is an assumption on my part. So the last thing before we go through questions is I wanted to show you how to deal with the payments. So on the payment side, in the payments module, you have, from a resell point of view, is you have a vendor payment and a customer payment. So I'm going to say that since the vendor invoiced, well, we'll say the customer is going to pay you first because you like them to pay you first before you pay the vendor. I know that's not a perfect world, but I'm going to say new customer payment from my favorite customer. They can send you a check for multiple invoices. That's not a problem. That's their check number. I don't remember the amount, so I'm just putting in a dummy amount for right now. But you would put in the actual amount of the check. And I'm going to click show open invoices, and it's going to grab those 2 invoices I sent them. And I could, if it's paying for the full amount, I could just click check. And so I was close. It was $16.89. So we'll say that they sent a check for $16.89. So now $16.89 has been applied to these 2 invoices. The difference is 0. That's what you want. It is possible to track. Let's say they underpaid you. They paid you $1,600. So it's showing you the negative 89. If it's something that you're going to wait, you're going to notify them that they owe you more, and then you're going to apply another payment later. That's no problem. You can just leave that there as such. Or if you're, let's say they disputed something, or you're giving them a credit for something. So even though they got invoiced for $16.89, for some reason you told them only send you $1,600. On the adjustments tab, you can add some kind of, adjustment to it, which will make it back to 0. Again, it just depends on the scenario. If they're fully paying it and you're expecting more, or are they underpaying you and there's a dispute, just depends on the scenario. I'm gonna go ahead and leave it as fully paid. As long as this equals what's expected, it's going to check close invoice. And if the order is fully satisfied, it will automatically check close order. If for some reason it's not fully satisfied, you'll see it's not checking them. It's waiting. It's going to leave that order and invoice open for you to get to handle later. But if for some reason you want to manually override it, you can check those to close the invoice and order. But I'm going to, again, go back to the default values, fully paid. Post the payment. Post makes you click it twice. And so now when I go to the order, you'll see from the customer side, I've received $16.89. So it's fully paid from a customer point of view, but obviously the manufacturer is wanting their money. So the way you can do that is go to File, New Vendor Payment. And I'm going to pay the first one. Again, I don't remember the exact number. So let me, this is, yeah, that's from another training. So this, I can pay the vendor for multiple invoices all at once, but for the training today, it was just this bottom line. So I'm sending them a check for, $114. No, $760. 114 was my commission that I'm getting back. So I'm writing in a check for $760. Applying it to that. Post always asks twice for security. Save changes. And you could do it for the other vendor. So I'm going to save time. I want to go to the invoices. I'm sorry, go to the questions because I want to make sure I get them all answered rather than show that final vendor payment. So it says, Yolani, you say, can you show the CAD to US conversion on Canadian orders? Yes. So let me do that one last because that deals with the setup and I can transition into the setup training. So let me just come back to that one. Can you show, the next one is M. Medeiros. Can you show how QuickBooks can be integrated with the customer invoice? So I can't fully show it because I don't have QuickBooks on here, but I can show you how to do it. I've got this customer invoice. I can hit Tools, Export to QuickBooks, and that will send the data over to QuickBooks. Keep in mind that it's a lot of settings in QuickBooks has to be adjusted so it pulls in, it's going to send over 10 part twos from Resell. It is, QuickBooks initially doesn't know who Resell is, this manufacturer. So that stuff will have to be set up. But it's not gonna do it on my system because I don't have QuickBooks installed. But that's all you would do is hit Tools, Export to QuickBooks to send that over. Can payments in QuickBooks be exported to ACES? From Stephanie C. No, right now there is no integration from QuickBooks back into Oasis. There is a future discussion with O4 to add more functionality between what's called an API, QuickBooks API and our API. But right now, today, the answer to that is no. And can you go over pro forma invoicing and payments? P. Johnson, I'm going to unmute you because I need to confirm. Let me, where's your, there you are. P. Johnson, do you mind just explaining what you mean by pro forma to make sure I understand it?
So can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So Oasis has a deposit invoice function that we've been using. So when we need to collect the monies first, so with new customers, we don't extend any credit to them. So we do a pro forma. We don't place the orders on the manufacturers until we've gotten the money.
Gotcha.
It creates a little bit of a problem for us in Oasis, like when we're looking at what has happened, because I don't know, just where I'm not sure how it doesn't apply, split up any of the, when we get the payment. So from the pro forma, it just kind of sits it there as a payment received, but doesn't give it distributed amongst the sales people. So it just kind of sits it there or whatever. I just want to make sure that we're doing this right, because we seem to have issues when we're trying to figure out what's going on in some of our BIPA orders, especially when there's a pro forma involved.
Okay, so let me show you how to do that real quick. Let me go back over here to orders, customer. Ooh, let me do it this way. File, new, order like. I'm trying to just quickly get resell test deposit. Okay, so I got some items, and I'm faking. So the way I understand it is before you send to the manufacturer the order, you're going to invoice the customer. So I'm going to say it's at this stage. And so I will do file, new, deposit invoice. And this case, if you want to make them pay the whole amount, you can. And I'm going to do an example of a partial deposit, but just keep in mind, you can do the full amount. So I can type in 50% and hit tab, and it will do the math for me. If it's 25% deposit, hit tab, it'll do the math for you. Or you can manually type in the amount. So in this case, let's say we're requiring $1,000 deposit. I know that your example, you're wanting them to possibly fully pay. So you could put in the full amount. So that's right here, the deposit invoice. And if you already know, like, let's say while you're in, like you required them to pay it, and it's already paid, you can actually enter the invoice and payment together. But most of the time you're entering the deposit invoice to send to the customer, and it's going to come back later. So you can also do invoice notes. before you do it. So I'm going to click create, and it creates this deposit invoice that I'll go ahead and I'm sorry if I'm rushing. I just want to get as much of these in as I can. This is deposit invoice. So here's the deposit invoice. It's lot billed, so it didn't have the item pricing. But basically, I'm saying, hey, customer, we're going to order these parts, and you need to pay this amount before I do it. So that has now been hypothetically sent. I'm going to go here to today and go back over here. So I have an invoice now on this order, but it hasn't even been transmitted to the factory yet. So let's say they go ahead and pay this deposit. So let me get the invoice number 1004. So I'm going to go, I forgot to get my favorite customer. Yeah. So I'm going to go to payments, and you're going to get a customer payment. My favorite customer, I think it was 1004. Yeah. So you can, if I had them deposit the whole amount, that's fine. But for this purpose, I only said 1,000. So they sent a check for $1,000. I'll go ahead and post the payment. Go to orders. And it's still this one. So I'm showing that, $16.89 is the sell. I've received $1,000. So let's say that satisfied the payment. I can now go through the process of sending the order to the manufacturer. I'm doing this just to expedite. So now it's been released. Then I do the vendor invoices, get them paid, or get those from the manufacturer. And then when I'm all said and done, and I'm wanting to now do the rest of, I guess I got to actually finish the last customer invoice, new customer invoice, tools, invoice all. So I'm now sending the customer an invoice for the full amount, but it's subtracting out the deposit that I paid. So when I send this to the customer, it's now subtracting out the deposit. Again, you wouldn't have to do this step if you were requiring a 100% deposit up front. And so now when this is paid, my favorite customer, that's the remaining amount. Back to the order. There we go. Got the full amount. Everything's satisfied. I hope that covered what you're after. I got a lot of questions, so let me just go through some more here. Under customer invoice address, we have a hard time getting the company shipped to come in when the customer is clicked. Okay, that one, that's kind of troubleshooting something maybe that's set wrong. So what I would recommend, Jackie, is calling us when it happens in support so we can walk through, because that sounds like maybe there's a bug or something, and it'd be hard for me to troubleshoot that on my screen. For the QuickBooks export, do you have info on your side on how it actually connects? What settings? Yes. If you go anywhere in Oasis, you can click Help About, or you can click this button right here, the help screen, and it'll open up our user guides. When you're in user guides, in your case, you're going to type in QuickBooks. And here is this page to walk through how to export to QuickBooks and some of the settings that you need to make sure happen. This is the side that I can't show you because I don't have it installed on my side. M. Medeiros is asking, is anyone here currently doing the QuickBooks invoice export that I could talk with after the webinar? Feel free to pop her a PM or a note on here. And Stephanie C., it is my understanding that sales accounts do not get paid when a payment is applied to a deposit invoice. So if the full amount is paid against a deposit invoice, will the sales account get paid? Yes, if one, the payment's posted and the sales accounts are set up and the order is closed sales and closed receivable. Then when you do the commissions for account report, it should apply that to it. So are there any other questions before I get into some settings for maybe admins on making sure things are set up right? I don't want to go over too much, but I want to give the admin some time. But the main intention was how to do resell, not necessarily how to set it up. So if there's any other, and actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the recording because some people also like to ask questions that they maybe don't want to have recorded. Share.